Okay, so hello to
I see the
all
number
of you who
count.
have joined. Yeah, Goldy.
No, I was just saying, I see the number count going up. That's a good sign.
Yes, and it'll keep going up as we speak. So just welcome and hello to everybody joining us today. Very special welcome to Goldy and Ajay. I was just sharing with the both of you that you have a big fan club, and I think the biggest fan is sitting right here, with you all right now because really admire both of you, both your insights, your acumen, your the way that you are able to present what you feel in a very diplomatic manner. Ajay, a little more Goldie, more vociferously, passionately. So it's just great to have the two of you here and get your views on something that is very, very topical. The Canada has voted, and we've all seen the outcome. We've gotten a new chapter now under the leadership of Prime Minister Mark Carney of Canada. And while the Liberals have returned to power, as we all know, it is with a very, very narrow mandate. And this signals a closely divided electorate and a political moment that is both uncertain and yet filled with potential. I think that describes the whole India-Canada relationship as well, what we have been, seeing, witnessing for the last few years. For India, these developments come at a time when both countries are reassessing how to move forward, whether it is diplomatically, commercially, and strategically. And today, what I hope to achieve from this conversation with having you both here is all about not looking back, but looking forward. What is it? What is this new configuration might mean for bilateral trade, for investment, for mobility and engagement? With special focus on India and Canada, of course. So, with that, I just want to quickly introduce both my speakers, although they don't need any introduction, but just a quick word to say that because both our speakers, their insights come not only from theory but from live honest experiences, and we are very, very privileged to have you with us. Ambassador Ajay Bisaria has had a distinguished 35-year diplomatic career and has represented India in key capitals including Ottawa, Islamabad, Berlin, and Moscow. Ajay, interesting places, I must say, when I say where all you've been. As India's former High Commissioner to Canada, your perspective on this relationship is both strategic and deeply informed. You're a strong voice as an advisor on several fronts in the India Canada corridor, and I must say, your special advice to the Chamber is something we are very, very privileged and thankful for. Goldy Hyder, President and CEO of the Business Council of Canada, represents the country's most influential business voices. You have long championed a pragmatic and globally engaged economic vision, including deeper ties with India, and you continue to remain as a very strong supporter to the chamber and an effective advisor to the Indian business community. And Goldie, as you said, you are joining us from a dorm in Harvard, or the campus in Harvard, and you were worried how it would appear, but I just want to say that it is your voice that counts. Your voice has always counted. You've come out with your, without filters, saying what you feel and what you mean. And we are very glad to have both you and Ajay here with us today. And I don't want to speak, I want you both to speak. So let me just go on to quickly, let's start off with some, from in. This is meant for both of you. I'll ask Ajay first to just start with your thoughts. From India's perspective, how do you think the outcome of this election is being interpreted, especially considering the diplomatic turbulence of the recent times? And also now that the new Liberal government is likely to feature, I mean, it's got a very strong voice in Mark Carney on foreign and economic policy. Do you believe India should pursue deeper re-engagement or adopt a more cautious wait and watch stand? So I'll give it to you, Ajay. Please feel what you say. Don't feel limited by these questions. What you feel is on today, and then I'll go on to Goldie for your thoughts. Over to you, Ajay.
Thanks, Nadira. Thanks for doing this, and great to see Goldy, my old friend and golfing partner from Ottawa. So it's great to be in this conversation. I would start by saying this is an important inflection point. not just for Canada, but also for India-Canada relations, these elections. For one thing, we were just discussing that Canada has got out of the list of India's worst enemies. Pakistan is back to take the position of enemy number one. Canada tried very hard to remain there, but that didn't work. So I think much is going to change now because both sides instinctively wanted to get out of the hole they had got into over the last 18 months of Trudeau. And India was careful all along in these 18 months to portray this to all partners and even to itself as a Trudeau problem. And the moment Trudeau went, part of the problem could potentially be solved and is indeed going to be solved. So I would look at this position very optimistically. You may have seen an article that appeared in the Hindustan Times today, which Nadir Patel, former High Commissioner of Canada to India, and I jointly wrote. And we've advocated a very ambitious agenda for the new Carney government for various reasons, for engaging with India, one, to get out of the problems that Trudeau had created, to define a new normal for the relationship, and in a sense to build back better. Because the good news about the relationship, as we saw over the last 2 years, was that while the government-to-government relationship had plunged, the economic relationship and the people-to-people relationship was allowed to continue. And much of this corridor, was moving fine. But the diplomatic and government-to-government relationship had gone rock bottom. But now's the time to pull that up and have an ambitious agenda. And I think that would include immediately restoring high commissioners and bringing back diplomatic missions to normal. Also to get into a conversation on a trade agreement. I think that is important, and to do multiple other things at the G2G level to facilitate business, to facilitate people-to-people connections. Structurally, a lot has changed in Canada, and we are waiting for this new government to kind of warm up and move in this direction. The early signs are good. There were positive statements by Carney on the campaign trail, and from his team, good signals to India. A very fine message from Prime Minister Modi to Carney, welcoming him and saying that we should work together to strengthen the partnership. So I think the early signs are good, and this likely will be a point from where we make progress in the relationship.
Thanks, Ajay. Goldy has also written a letter to the Prime Minister, which you shared on a kind of agenda. So, Goldy, along with what you feel, also could mention what you have stated in your letter.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much for having me back, Nadira. And I can't tell you how great it is to see my old friend and golf mate, as he said. It's a privilege to be on with him. And already he has pretty much stolen all my thunder about everything I would have said. So ditto to everything that he said. Let me try and give you some framing and color around where we are as we look forward. And I think that's the key point here is we can spend a lot of time dwelling on the past, or we can take this as an opportunity to pivot and to look to the opportunities that continue to remain in our relationship. I think the word I want to stress today is a reset, and the reason for that is we have, a new Prime Minister, someone very well known to us in the business community, someone who holds a high regard, has served our country both as Governor of the Bank of Canada and now as Prime Minister, and of course served as the Governor of the Bank of England as well. It was the first individual to ever have held two central bank roles. So you can tell that we have a lot of optimism in his capacities to lead a government, not just in Canada, and there's a lot of things for us to do in Canada, but equally importantly, as the host of the G7 this year in June, a quick opportunity to reset our place in the world, as well as we look forward to new leadership from him. He inherits a very complicated situation. I don't know if you've read, but much like your border, we're having a few issues on our border as well. And while I think we can also turn the page on that, because there is no question some of that was very personality driven with the president and our former prime minister. I believe that is not going to be the case with this prime minister, and already the president has sort of backed down from his rhetoric around calling the prime minister a governor or musing openly about de facto acquiring Canada to become the 51st state. That rhetoric has declined significantly, and it's certainly credit to Mr. Carney for saying that I'm not going to be engaged if we're not respected and I'm not respected. And so I think there's a turning of the page that's likely to happen here. That doesn't mean we won't get a true social post once in a while. That just comes with the environment in which we're operating. But I'm optimistic that the Canada-US relationship is going to be stabilized, and that's an important point to start with, because I think we all recognize that in the global community in which we live, having had America's role in the world provided a certain degree of clarity in terms of who's going to be involved where and what's going to take place. But now to witness the American withdrawal from the world to some extent, although it's becoming more hemispheric in the way in which they're looking at their so-called spheres of influence. But the point is, when America changes, the rest of us change. And that is going to create opportunities for us bilaterally and multilaterally in different parts of the world. So whether we're talking about, what Europe is going through, or whether we're talking about the opportunities that exist in the Indo-Pacific, Canada cannot just look south. It now needs to look east and west. And that is the basis on which I feel optimistic that a reset can occur, because we need it to occur. Canada needs it to occur. We have been for too long beholden to a single economy, and not of their doing, frankly, of our doing. And today in our country, the president has managed to unite us in ways in which no Canadian could. East and West, French and English, urban and rural. Not quite on the hockey teams yet, because that's very personal for Canadians, as cricket is to Indians. But overall, there's generally speaking unification that Canada needs to stop being reliant on a single economy as much as we are. So that creates opportunities for us to look at, first and foremost, countries with whom we already have longstanding relationships, particularly with those with trading agreements. And as you know, business likes predictability and stability, and trading agreements offer that. We clearly don't have that with India. We had kind of brought it to the altar, at least with an early progress attempt at a trade agreement. I agree with my friend that we do need to create the conditions to ensure that we get back to that place reasonably quickly. Because, as I said, time is not our friend when it comes to this issue. As Canadian businesses start to look to deploy their capital and invest their talent, it will more likely be favored to countries in which we have trade agreements, because it provides certainty, predictability around tariff policy, around dispute mechanisms and terms of the agreement, in terms of the length of the agreement. And so it is important to create the conditions to bring that about. And what I think will make that possible here is not just the new face of the Prime Minister, although that's obviously an important one, but I expect you will start to see new faces in our cabinet. They may or may not be changes in the short run on foreign affairs and trade. We'll know in a matter of days, I suspect, weeks at the most. Either way, there is going to be an opportunity to create new relationships as well. Having said that, we are building on a strong foundation, personal relationships that we've all developed, as I have with my friend Ajay and others, the relationships that still exist. I was with the Honorable Mary Ng just a couple of days ago at the ABAC meeting, and literally a text came, she said, from Minister Goel about something, that they continue to speak about things. So those are foundational in terms of how we can move forward. And then lastly, let me just say that the Indo-Pacific strategy that was created by the previous government, one of the things that we certainly agreed on and we participate in very aggressively, there is no such thing as an Indo-Pacific policy without the Indo. And so it's the first word in the strategy. And so we clearly need to get to a better place. And I think we can talk more about how we do that.
Yeah, thanks, Goldy. So, coming to that, Ajay, you did mention earlier on that, that investors are asking you now again with this position that we are in India, because that was, Canada was in that position, but now India has again got its geopolitical tensions as well. So investors on both sides at this time are, being cautious. So what is it that, how do you think that we can navigate through this time? I know that India and Canada are, as you said, that both the prime ministers seem to have given all the right signals, and while we are waiting for the new high commissioners to come in and things to, but it's going to take a little bit of time. And meantime, investors are a bit fidgety, a bit cautious. So, what is the advice that you are giving to them, and to help
Yeah, well,
them
let
through
me,
this period?
when you work for chief executives, you hear the phrase, the tone is set at the top. And I was very pleased to see Prime Minister Modi come out very early with early congratulations, even while things were being finalized here. That's a good indication from him directly, and that is critically important. And I think you'll see the same thing from Prime Minister Carney. There is a lot on his plate. Obviously, the United States of America is occupying a lot of our oxygen here in Canada. But the Prime Minister has made it very clear that diversification is going to be very high priority as we go forward. And so that personal relationship, it may or may not be struck at the G7 if Canada chooses to invite India potentially to the G7. That could be a moment. I'm not sure we're hanging our hats on that one. It's already late in the game here. But at some point in time, whether it's at the G7 or sorry, the G20 or others, Prime Minister Carney and Prime Minister Modi are going to be able to have a sit down. And the way we've been looking at this is I kind of say tongue in cheek, mom and dad are having an argument. And it's important that the kids don't get caught up in the middle of it. And by the kids, I mean business and people-to-people relations and the cultural relations. Mom and dad are going to make up. That's what happens. And, we are going to have to continue to do what we do. And I'm really pleased that the wisdom that Minister Goel and Minister Ng at the time, I literally had engagements with them both around this, said, we want the business to continue. We want the investment to continue. We want the relationships to continue. I think that was wise on their part because they knew that the other issues are going to eventually resolve themselves. And all indications are that elephant is being taken out of the room, albeit a little slower than some of us might like, but we're getting there. All indications, as I said, are we're going to get there. So it's important that we continue to do what we were doing through your leadership and the leadership of others, our own interactions with my colleagues at CII and FICCI and others. That allows us to hit the ground running when mom and dad come back and tell all the kids, all's good here.
Yeah, sure. So, and Ajay, what about you? Your advice to the investors at this time? How are they going to be until things are more clear?
Right. So in my conversations with a lot of investors, including the pension funds, some of them had sort of pressed the pause button. Some said, the deals that were in discussion should continue. There's no reason to stop them. And I think that was good policy. So on the India-Canada corridor, there would be every reason to be very optimistic now about the larger framework of the relationship in terms of mom and dad to the two governments are now, moving on a very positive trajectory, trade agreement, talking of, we've even suggested in our article today, the two former high commissioners, that we could think of a green strategic partnership, among other things that we talked about. So I think there is a positive ballast from the India-Canada political sort of framework to the corridor. But talking of the tension between India and Pakistan, it is serious. We are in a conflict situation. We've had a major blow with the terrorist attack, but we've seen this movie before. This happened 6 years ago. We had Pulwama, a huge attack by Pakistan. And in 12 days, we had an escalation with Balakot and airstrikes. But then the two countries also stabilized the relationship within a month. I would hope and expect that there would be an escalation. Definitely, there will be very likely kinetic action by India against Pakistan, which means a military strike of some kind. But there will also be a de-escalation instinct in both countries to not let this escalate beyond a point. and in the world, because this is a nuclear environment. So a lot of global partners, including the US, will likely start making noises or trying to put pressure, particularly on Pakistan, early in the game. So if I was a risk analyst today, advising a business, I would say be prepared for a little bit more turbulence, because there would be some military action, but the chances are that this will be diffused. Of course, the caveat is that the geopolitical risk of it escalating also goes up at that point. But with Pakistan, we've been through this cycle many, many times. And as you see, the governments are very cautious in, deciding on war and peace is not an easy decision. It's tougher than deciding on a tariff war, whether to send those missiles in. But I think there will be a quick de-escalation. I recall that at Pulwama time, 6 years ago, the market didn't even flinch after the terrorist attack. Exactly what happened this time. Pahalgam happened. There was no negative impact on the markets. But when the Balakot airstrikes happened, there was some nervousness. The markets did go down, but they recovered very quickly. And I would hope that the same scenario will unfold this time. So for folks in the India-Canada corridor, on both on the India-Canada front, very positive news. It's going to get much better. Early days yet, but we don't know how it'll all shape up, but it'll shape up positively. In the India-Pakistan conflict, early days yet, but it'll get worse before it gets better.
Thanks, Ajay. Just quickly, I wanted to, last month in March, we had there was a global summit in the Global Forum in Mumbai, and we were part of a small closed door session. And, very different to what we all have been advocating in the last year or so. The group came out with this whole idea that, politics and business cannot be compartmentalized. They cannot be separate and operate separate. One is dependent on the other. And there was also feeling at that time that since Mark Carney was coming in, that the liberal, that if the conservatives had come in, there would be a larger, more positive response from India, from the Indian government. But now with the Liberal Party coming in, it can't be that much. They can't change their stance that much, and therefore they were still they were not looking at it in a very positive way. But since then, things have changed. As you said, the recent outputs by both the prime ministers, etc. So do you think, is that still a little bit, or anything that you'd like to comment on that, or you feel that now things have changed and there's no longer that issue to be thought about?
I wouldn't worry about that. And I would say that, India would look at its relationship with Canada the way it looks at its relationship with the US. We want a bipartisan relationship of positivity. It doesn't matter in the US whether it's Republican or Democrat anymore. Some people argue maybe Republicans are somewhat better. Others say, Democrats might be better in some other areas. But over the last 5 administrations, the relationship got better and better. Each Biden added something, Trump 1 added something, Trump 2 is adding more. So I think this is the kind of relationship we'd like to see with Canada. And if, as it's being argued, that being liberal is the natural state of being for Canada, so be it. For India, we would need a bipartisan kind of relationship where we get into an excellent relationship with Canada, and Canada sees it in its national interest to have this relationship with India, regardless of whether it's a liberal or a conservative administration. So, from India's point of view, the India-Canada relationship has been much more smartly managed, or was not as much of a challenge as some of the other adversarial relations India has. For instance, with Pakistan, if the political relationship goes down, everything goes down the tube, right? There are no flights, there's no business. everything is shut. The waters are being shut. With China, after the 2020 Galwan problem at the border, we had flight stopped. Business was threatened. There was an impact on business of kinds. But now we are trying to get to a better space with China, with both sides trying to move forward pragmatically, slowly. But with Canada, we had the political corridor was not affecting in any major way the business and the people-to-people corridor. But it is important, as we realize, that potentially it could poison the other two streams, right? So we want the political relationship to be strong, to be supportive, to be pushing with the trade agreements, the investment treaties, the other infrastructure that makes it easier to do business. So fortunately, Canada is in a much better space, and it'll be much easier to recover this relationship from the bottom we had reached till last year.
Thanks, Ajay. Goldy, you represent
before you go there, can I add to that a bit? Because
yes, please, please, feel
it's
free.
critically important, because we can't ignore the fact that it's possible these kinds of issues arise again in the future. And you must learn from the experience of the present and the past to make sure that you manage them, and if and when they occur. And we're human beings, and if I'm using the mom and dad analogy, they're going to fight again about something else someday, hopefully a long ways away. But you have to learn from this moment. And I think what we're seeing here is, whether you're talking India or Canada, the fact is we're mature democracies. We have the same value structures. We need to, recognize the importance of the rule of law. We have to call each other out when things may go wrong. We also have to be, respectful of each other, respectful of the way the way in which our countries function, the different cultures, different societies, the way we come at diversity. All of these things they come with the territory of being a democracy, and that is you don't all have to agree about everything. That's not the foundation of what a democracy is. We need to ensure that we learn from this, though. How did we get to where we got to, and how do we make sure that doesn't happen again? And some of that is on us as Canadians to ensure that we're cognizant of not taking the bait in some of these diaspora politics that gets involved. And it's not just from India, by the way. It's from different parts of the world. We're a very mosaic model here in Canada, and that has exposed us at times to becoming subject to things that are actually, the responsibility of other countries to be managing. And so some of that falls on us, but we need to continue to leverage the relationships that have been cultivated on the people-to-people ties. That should not change. We're having some challenges with the students issue here. Again, not of India's doing. That is really of Canada's doing, in terms of how the immigration system seems to have gotten away from us, and how we need to manage the public consensus on the need for immigration, on the need for foreign students, and so forth. And so, mature democracies have to call each other out. I think when Prime Minister Modi called out President Trump on the treatment of some of the returnees that came from the United States, that's fair game. That is expected to happen. But it's critical that we don't use every moment as a place to now go into a chill for multiple years. That's what we have to avoid.
Yeah, which I think is the main thing, because the communication has to be open, and confidence. I think we, in each of our roles, need to just keep assuring and giving the confidence to our businesses, to our investors, that this is a strong corridor. As you said, people to people ties are too strong for external factors. There is disruption, but it keeps going on. So I think that's an important thing that we need to do. I just wanted to bring in one area which we have been facing as a chamber, that has been a problem as a result of this fallout, is the visa issue. A lot of people have not been getting visas, which is and what is happening is that, okay, business visas, they say, are not being affected, but if a businessman is traveling to Canada and his wife and the children want to go along, the wife and children's visas are not getting cleared. Similarly, when we put these out as a chamber, when they approach us, and they say that, there's nothing that we can do. And similarly is happening in, when we tell them, they say even from Canada, these people have not been allowed to come, or this and that. So this has become a very big, very, very big stumbling block, I would say, in the relationship at this moment. There are people who want to go for cruises. They can't go because the visa has got just rejected without any reason. There are people who want to go for a sister's wedding and their visa has got rejected. There are government officers who want to go and, with their wives, and the wives' visas have got rejected. So, and there is, so we are at that situation where it says that I don't want to go anymore. I don't want to go. I don't want Canada. And so it's creating a very negative impact all over, even with the business. So whether it is even people who want to send a group over there, big IT companies who want to send, they're not able to get them out there. So it's causing a lot of frustration and anger in India. And I'm sure it's happening in Canada as well. Just because I'm sitting here on the spot, I can talk about it, and I get much more, requests from the Indian side. But I'm sure it's happening on the Canadian side as well, Goldie. How do you think this is a problem? How do you think we can tackle this? Because we can't just wait for months to get this. Is there any way that we can put in a kind of something that the chamber can do with the support of stalwarts like the two of you, where we can talk to the governments on both sides and say this cannot be done. We cannot jeopardize the relationship just on the basis of this. Any your opinion, Goldie, and then Ajay?
It's a very big question. The first of all, let me say it's not right what's happening. It's not what should be expected, and it's a multifaceted issue. It's the reason we've ended up where we've ended up is not just the things that we've been talking about already, because it's hard to, when you don't have staff in your embassies to do the grunt work that comes with an issue around visas and so forth. That's obviously going to be a clog, right? It's going to slow things down. And so we clearly need to be putting a lot more pressure on our governments, and frankly demanding that sooner rather than later, we try and return to regularly scheduled programming of having high commissioners, of having fully staffed high commissions, so that the services that they offer are able to be to be able to exercise, because currently we just don't have it. We don't have that capacity to do that, and the demand continued to be very high. So we've got to find a path forward sooner rather than later to restore the normalcy of bilateral relations that comes with having each other's representatives as a high commissioner and their accompanying teams fully deployed in each of their respective countries. And I can't tell you today with any certainty when that's going to happen. But we know that if we don't keep up the pressure, if we don't demand it, if we don't call for it, then politics being what politics is, and diplomacy with respect being what it is, they can rag that puck, as we say in hockey, for quite some time. That's not in our mutual interest. We need to create the conditions for that to be addressed, and we need to demand better. I think it's fair. I've said this publicly here in Canada. It's not right that foreign students who have paid full fees can't find accommodation, or are sharing, six people in a basement and in 2 bedrooms and a single bathroom. That's not right. And so we have to do better. And I know that there's a lot of pressure mounting here, not just for foreign students or others, for Canadians to have better access to the infrastructure, starting with housing, affordable housing, the rental units being made available. We're dealing with congestion here a lot. I know that's rich for me to say when you're sitting in New Delhi, but the reality is traffic in Toronto and others, it's creating a negative vibe here in Canada about foreign students, about immigration, about temporary foreign workers, all of whom Canada needs. We have a 1.3 birth rate. We used to have 7 workers for 1 retiree. It's almost approaching 2 workers for 1 retiree now. We need the people that we're attracting, but we can't treat them the way that we have, and it's on us to do better. But it's also on the bilateral relationship to restore to normal, so that the apparatus that's necessary, the processing of visas, the timely responses, the medical checkups, all the things that need to take place are occurring in an expeditious way, as opposed to a long, drawn-out, stretched-out process. I mean, there are best practices here. I think our friends in Australia are able to process things in like a week. We have to aspire to get to that place quicker, as quickly as possible.
Ajay, what about you on the visa issues?
Absolutely. I agree with everything Goldie said. And it is important to have these visas going. On India's part, fortunately, we have e-visas, so it's quite simple. It's not hit by the number of diplomatic or visa personnel we have in our missions. This is going fairly smoothly, but people going from India to Canada is a problem. At a conceptual level, it's a good thing. People still want to go to Canada. It's not that the Canada brand has been hit in a big way, although in the education corridor for completely different dynamics, there was a 40% fall. I've been speaking to some of the university leaders who've been very concerned about this fall in the number of people coming because brand Canada has taken a hit. But I think all these things can be easily fixed. Canada itself and its leaders have been saying that this is pause, not stop. They're reviewing everything, and we hope the review is done quickly by the new government, and the normalcy in this visa corridor is restored. So I think the whole mobility piece is an important part of the conversation that the two new governments will have, and that will be about legal migration, illegal migration, and simply the tourist and student flow. All of which I think it's more Canada's decision, more Canada's internal conversation that is important here.
Yeah. I agree, and also it has shown us in the recent months, with Trump, US coming in, and then now recently with the Pakistan issue for India, how fragile this whole new global relationships are. You never know what is going to happen at what time, and it has also brought into the forefront that India and Canada, in spite of all that has been happening, it has got strong ties, and mainly due to the people to people ties, and that is something that we all value and we are, nurturing, and it's going to help in the future. So I think altogether, India Canada, it seems very positive. It seems that the relationship is going to get better. It seems that, I mean, we are all together hoping for more and more economic engagement, that the free trade agreement gets back into some movement. We are hoping that quickly the diplomacy channels are restored and the high commissioners are there in both, and we can start work as soon as possible. So those are the few steps that are, like taken. That is there taken for granted. But what else? So quickly, just want to ask you, Ajay, and then to Goldie, what are the two steps that you would seek that would should be the right now that the Canadian government should take, as we start this new, as the new government starts its tenure towards the India Canada race?
Right. Both Goldie and you mentioned the larger geopolitics, and I think that is important because the economic relationship already has a dynamism and a logic. We've seen the $100 billion of Canadian investment in India. We've seen the trade going up, the corridor active. But in terms of the geopolitics, the geopolitical alignment is also strong. Even in the previous regime, there was the Indo-Pacific Treaty was talking about China as a disruptive power, India as a critical partner, the need to align more closely with India. And I think that rationale has, in this Trumpian world of the last 100 days, been needs to be further emphasized. Because we used to live in a world where when I was High Commissioner, we were trying to persuade Canadian companies, look at the China plus one opportunity. Look at India as the China plus one, the alternative to China. We saw how Apple moved its supply chains to India very rapidly in this new environment. But now I would argue there's also a US plus one opportunity. A lot of the Canadian companies are rethinking the kind of intense integration with the United States, funds having more than 40-50% of their funds in the United States, they will be looking at some kind of diversification. And I think with Europe also in some degree of question mark, China a challenge. India is a natural sort of partner for businesses to look at options, to look at in terms of even risk diversification. So I think that is an important factor. And for the two governments, I think it's important to move ahead to create the frameworks. And I think the trade agreement is something that the new Canadian government should think of seriously and perhaps enter into conversation on an investment treaty. And I think on India's part, to make use of this huge opportunity of China plus one, US plus one, geopolitics and volatility, is to reduce our own protectionist barriers, become much more attractive as an investment destination, have policy which is much more, quickly reacting and flexible and agile, and also to, create, reduce our regulatory cholesterol, to be able to be that attractive alternative global destination, that sweet spot in the world where people can invest, and particularly something that Canada looks at as an attractive place to do business with.
Great, Ajay. Those are great words. Goldie, quick two steps that you think that the government should be doing.
Oh, we just
Goldie, I
Goldie
think
frozen.
has that's a rare for Goldie
The
to be at a
only
loss
way
for
you can
words. Yeah.
you can silence Goldie is by freezing
Yes.
him. So someone has done that today. Okay.
Okay,
So
so yeah, so while we go on to, while we wait for Goldy to get back to us, Ajay, anything else that you would
yeah.
like to
So,
say?
I would say that the new Canadian government, as it takes over, will have a very, very full plate in dealing with the US, right? The new reality of the US is something which is the campaign was on, the mandate is for, and they will be reimagining this relationship with the United States, and much will have to change. And I think there will be a lot of geopolitical hedging. China and they would be looking for Canada will be looking for newer partners, for newer trade deals, for new paradigms in its security, for its economy, for the way it deals with the rest of the world. So I think all that will create opportunities for business. There will be a redefining of, I think, even supply chains. For instance, India and Canada can do a lot more on critical minerals. For instance, it's important to get those supply chains for India, which has a huge suspicion of China. China will continue to remain a major strategic challenge for India. This over dependence on the supply chains from China is something India will want to change, and we could have that stronger relationship with Canada. And as Goldie was saying, and then let me speak on his behalf. It is we must recognize that there will be problems in the relationship. There will be wrinkles, and we should have the structures to be able to iron them out. So that's the way we'll have to work on this.
I think Goldie, yeah,
Goldie's be coming
Goldie,
back.
welcome back. Like we just said that it's rare to see Goldie at a loss for words, and then we realized that it was frozen.
And I missed out on the last half of his wisdom. I was actively taking notes. You can blame the hotel Wi-Fi, but I'm back.
Goldie, I spoke on your behalf, but you can say you agree with everything I said, and go ahead and speak some more.
I would never say that without knowing what you said. I know you. You're trying to get me in trouble back home, aren't you?
Right. So, Goldie, I just summarized it by saying it's a huge opportunity, and among the things the Canadian government, new Canadian government, can do is double down on this possible trade agreement and do that early, and after having fixed the political relationship, built some kind of trust, and then look at India as the opportunity and encourage business to be more intensely involved with India in the new geopolitics and the new reality.
Well, I do agree with that, and I think that's it's a good segue to the sort of the points that I was going to make on our side is effectively what we've in a way discussed, right? It starts with normalizing relationships. I think we're in the trajectory of doing that. We know that the security establishments have been meeting. My indications from our side certainly are that there is progress being made, and it's cautious optimism is probably the way I would describe it, that we're going to be able to move forward again in mature countries, mature democracies are going to have to find a way to deal with those kinds of situations. It reflects the strength of the relationship that we're able to do it expeditiously. If you recall back in your own history with India and China, I think it was like 20 years before diplomatic relations were restored. I don't think it'll be 20 years for that to happen between Canada and the United States, or sorry, Canada and India. We'll certainly be able to do that much quicker.
Canada and the United States might take longer.
It might, yes, touche. The other thing I would say is that the issue that was raised around foreign students and visas and so forth, it is important because it's a personal issue for people. It's about how they feel and their expectations that they would be as customers in some ways, receive the treatment that they deserve. I mean, I did go through the e-visa process for my daughter last year, and I think it took less than 48 hours. It was just went right through the system. I didn't call anybody, I didn't do anything. I just filed it online, and everything got done there. So it should function that way, and I think we need to keep the pressure up, as I mentioned, in how to get that issue resolved. It does require the staffing up of our high commissions, and I want to continue to stress the importance that if tone is set at the top, having proper representation from our countries that are full-fledged high commissioners with a fully staffed embassy to be able to do the functions not just of immigration but of diplomacy and of trade and so forth. That is going to happen when we can get to that place quicker rather than later. I haven't been saying a whole lot except for my opening remarks about trade, but I have stressed the importance that we have that. That despite not having it, let's look at all that has been achieved. We've got numerous companies in India from Fairfax to CAE to Open Text, whose board I sit on, Hatch. I mentioned Hatch. I think Atkins Realis in the nuclear space, and Sun Life, of course, its partnership with Birla. The list goes on, and that is foundational. These businesses were not interrupted, and I want to give full credit where credit is due to both governments for encouraging that continuity of that business relationship. I've had many of my members go to India, meet with their teams, meet with their customers and clients. Some have even met Prime Minister Modi. And it just goes to show you that both sides have been honoring that we're not going to get the kids involved in this scrap. And so I think it's good that that has been the case. The siblings have been able to get along, and we've been able to do what we need to do, which makes the pivot to this reset that I've talked about that much easier to do, because this lane continued to function as it has. And eventually, I think it's important for us to time this right. But let's get back to that trade table. Let's at least do if we still want to call it this, EPTA thing, or if we want to do a FIPA or a full FTA, whatever the case might be. Look, one thing's clear. When there's urgency, everybody's willing to move fast. Look what the President of the United States was able to do. And by all accounts, my indication from your side is they're moving rather quickly. It may even get there as early as this year at some point in time. Now, I don't know if it's an actual trade agreement or if it's a letter of intent or an MOU. Whatever it is, when there's a will, there's a way. And so we need to create the same conditions to get to a place where Canada and India get serious about addressing. And listen, these are complicated discussions. Both countries have strong agricultural industries. Both countries have a history of protectionism to some extent, despite being free traders. We need to do better in that bilateral relationship. And I think it's incumbent upon business leaders such as yourself, Nadira, in India and others, to ensure that people are hearing that we haven't let that go. We want that we want that back, and we need it because from my side, if I can be candid, I look at a map and I say to my members, capital has no ideology or nationality. It basically goes where $1 can become $2. It goes where it's welcome. Money goes where it grows. And in a global map, there's a lot of options. And I'm in a country that has, I think, 15 trading agreements with 51 countries. And so members can choose a lot of places with a lot more safety and confidence that there are rules by which they can be investing their capital. So as much as we've done in India, I mean, we can go 10x in India, we can go 20x in India, but not everybody is the size and scale of our pension funds and others. They want to de-risk their investments, and trade agreements help do that. So that's where I would put the emphasis as we look forward.
And Goldy, to give you a benchmark on the US-India trade conversation, what we are hoping is that by the 90-day deadline, which is till the end of June, we have the preliminary agreement. And then we have President Donald Trump coming to India in October to sign it during the Quad Summit. There was a point when I was in Canada that Canada was far ahead. And we were using Canada as a role model to tell the US that, look, we are about to sign an agreement with Canada. It's about ready. And the whole situation has flipped. So maybe you can persuade the new government to get in the race and try to beat Trump to sign this even sooner.
Yes. No, so we'll, just on a closing note, thank you both, Ajay and Goldy, for being with us today, for all your insights. I think we've covered a lot of, different facets of this whole relationship, whether it is the business side, the visa side, the investment side. And I think we're all on the same page where we all feel that where politics may shift, but the relationship between India and Canada is such that it has endured, it has withstood all the challenges. And I hope that no longer do we, because initially last year, Ajay and Goldy, as you must have seen, every conversation said that it will improve, but the worst is yet to come. And I do hope now that we don't have to ever use that again, and we just hope that it goes on. As Goldy, you said, wrinkles will happen, but where there's a will, there's a way. And Ajay, I think for all the confidence that you have given to the investors, great, and to the businesses, Goldy, I think we need to continue doing that. And I think we are on an upward path. So thank you very much for being here. And let's close on this very, very positive note. Welcome, Goldy. I hope we welcome you soon to India with your investors, your business people coming in.
And the other way as well. We wouldn't mind some of your money. We have a lot of diversification taking place, and we need to build a lot of infrastructure. So
give us the visas, Goldy. Give the visas and we'll
give us the visas and we'll give you money.
I walked into that one, didn't I?
Thanks a lot. Thanks.
Thank you all.
Thanks both
Thank
of
you.
you.
Thank you.
Nice to see you.
All the
Take
best.
care. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.